Hi, and welcome to the Loan Officer Teen Training Podcast. My name is Irene Duford, and I'm your host. And I am super excited to have with me today a really good friend of mine, a amazing originator for 21 years, and the owner and CEO of Remote Assistant Scout, Richard Smith. Welcome, Richard.
Hey Irene, how are you?
I'm good. It's so good to have you here. It's been a while.
Yes, it's definitely been a while, and I know you and I have been friends for, gosh,
15 years.
15 years. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while. So I just appreciate you being on here. I know you've been on the podcast before, but
Yep.
I wanted to have you on because I wanted to talk today about this book, Leadership Matters. And I'm showing
Yes.
it on YouTube as well. And this is the back of it where you and I were blessed to be co-authors in this book with all these other authors here. And so I think there were 25 authors total,
Yep.
great leaders, all great leaders in their own business, right? In mortgage and for me, it was training. For you, it's the remote assistant scout where you hire virtual assistants for people. And I
Yep.
got my virtual assistant that way. I have an amazing assistant that I've had for about 3 or 4 years now. And I got her from your company, using your company to hire her. So we'll talk
Awesome.
about that. But I wanted to show you are in chapter 19 of this book, Leadership Matters.
Yes.
And I just wanted to talk a little bit about the book itself. And your chapter is Leading Remotely. So we're not going to give away anything in the book because I want people to buy it. And by the way, you can buy it at Amazon. And it's called Leadership Matters: Insights of Success and Strategies from Industry Leaders, and it's by Ginger Bell. And I just wanted to have you on so we can talk about why leadership matters every day.
Oh, definitely. And I agree with you. The book is excellent. There's plenty of chapters. There's different subjects from each person. Each person has their own thoughts and ideas and skills and experiences. So it really is a good book. So definitely buy the book.
Yeah, so I'm excited. It's been a really fun journey to write a chapter in the book. It's the first
Yep.
time, I think. Have you ever written a book?
I wrote a chapter in the book Agent Mastermind years ago,
Awesome.
and then the chapter in Leadership Matters. And actually, it's funny you asked that, but my book, my first book with just me, it's about to be released. It's going to be released soon, probably within the next couple weeks.
That's fantastic. So tell us about that one, and then we'll go back to this one.
So it's Work Less, Grow More: Your Guide to Using Virtual Assistants to Streamline Your Mortgage Business. So
I
if you're on
love it.
YouTube, you can kind of see it.
Yeah.
That's it's got the little gray line through it because it's not a actual final copy yet, but yeah, it's really just an overview of all the things that you can do to hire your own virtual assistant, how to manage them, how to be a leader to them, tools to use. It's all inclusive. It's literally a guide to hire a virtual assistant. So it took quite a while to put together, but it's very exciting, very, very exciting. I know we weren't going to go there, or you probably, I don't even know if you knew I was doing
I
that, but
didn't. I knew you
but
were gonna write a book, but I didn't know you were that close to releasing it. So good, we'll talk about both books. I love it.
yep, very cool, very cool. Yeah, I'm excited about releasing it because I think it'll help a lot of people.
That is going to really help people. And they can do it on their own or they can hire you to do it for them. I prefer to hire it out just because I don't have time to do a lot of
Right.
the stuff, but it sounds like you've made a blueprint for doing it and you're sharing it
Yes.
in that book.
Yep, you can hire one on your own. It is, I agree with you. It is difficult if you don't know what you're doing. Even with the book and the step-by-step instructions, it's there's still a lot of really hard parts, and we take care of that for our clients that want to hire. But the choice is yours. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, that's awesome. So I'm looking at this Leadership Matters book. And when you talk about leading remotely. You talked about
Yep.
communication is key to for clarity and consistency. So tell us a little bit about why it's important to have clarity and consistency when you're leading.
Yeah, because when somebody, a lot of people have that misconception that if somebody's not in their office, it's hard to manage them or hard to lead them per
Yes.
se. And
Yes.
there's so many ways that you can do that and be as or even more effective than if they were in your office. There's multiple channels of ways to communicate. Of course, email, but that's kind of the lower on the totem pole.
Hmm.
But there's tools like Slack where you can communicate really quickly with somebody, with a team member. There's, of course, Zoom with doing video calls. I
Hmm.
always like to start the day, and really, this is with any team member, but especially team members that are remote or virtual, is start the day with like a 5 to 15 minute huddle in the morning. And doing that on video is so key because
Yeah.
it makes you feel like you're there and you're getting to know the person, especially at the beginning of the relationship. And then you can talk about what needs to be done for the day and so forth, what the goals are and all of that. So
Hmm.
that's that having that communication is really, really important. And then I always like to suggest to people that once you kind of have that plan of action for the day or for the week,
Hmm.
it's more about managing by results. So as opposed to micromanaging, because nobody wants to be called every 45 minutes. Hey, are you done doing that? Or how far
Right.
along are you? So you kind of manage by results too. And one thing that's super, super important with remote employees, with virtual assistants, and pretty, you can really do this with anybody, is to have an end of day report. They
Hmm.
call it an EOD report. And
Okay.
so at the end of the day, your virtual assistant will send you a report of everything they accomplished for the day. If they made outbound phone calls, they can really detail it down to show how many calls they made, how many people they talked to, how
Hmm.
many appointments they set for you. But having that end of day report is really, really important in
I
the
like that.
communication process.
That way, you're starting the day together and you're ending the day knowing what they did.
Yep.
So that's really good. I love that. And then the next one, number two in your chapter, is fostering trust in a virtual environment. You know my story, Richard, because we know each other really well. And you
Right.
knew that I waited years to get a virtual assistant, even though my good friend Richard was the one hiring, and you were one of the first people to implement in our coaching program getting a virtual assistant, right? You were the first one. You got a really good virtual assistant. I think it was your second or third time around. It took you a couple, but
Right.
you got them. And then, even though I trusted you and even though I knew, I still didn't get one myself because I had this thing about confidentiality and how do I deal
Right.
with that? And what if they take something and I don't know? Or, just not knowing that someone was here with me. But once I finally gave that up, it was
Right.
amazing what has happened since then and how I couldn't get by without her now. There's no way that I could get by without her.
Yeah. I always like to look at it as comparing that to any team member, you're going to build trust as time goes.
Yes.
And so with anybody or with a virtual assistant, you're not going to give them full access to everything on day one. You're going to kind of build that trust as you go, but there are tools that you can put into place at the beginning to help as you work on building trust with that team member. So there's things like LastPass, which allows you to give the team member a link to let's say a website that you have. Instead of giving them the username and password, they get a one-time link that opens up and lets them have access. A lot of times people will not give access to their CRM right away.
Hmm.
So what they can do is they can upload their, let's say their database of real estate agents onto a spreadsheet and let the VA make calls from that spreadsheet and then write the results on the spreadsheet. And
Hmm.
then as time goes, you start to trust that person and you can give them access to different things, your CRM. Like my VAs now have access to pretty much everything because we've built trust over the years. There's also other ways that you can give access to where they don't have full access to, let's say, your CRM. You can give them access to a computer in your office so you can kind of watch them if you need to. There's also programs that you can watch that'll watch them and take snapshots of their screen every 5 seconds and things like that. But it's really like any team member, you build that trust over time.
Hmm.
Another thing, like with Remote Assistant Scout, we do full background checks. In the Philippines, we really vet them out well. And I will tell you, in 16, I think it's 15 or 16 years now that I've been hiring virtual assistants, I have not once seen or heard of any problems of stolen identity or anything.
Hmm.
And we're talking about we've helped now over 1,000 loan officers hire virtual assistants,
Uh-huh.
and I've never seen a problem at all.
That's great. Well, good. I wish I had trusted sooner. That was like my last bit of fear that I had
Right,
inside of me. And it was unwarranted because I've never had a problem. And I've had three different people that have been virtual assistants that I've hired through your company. And one of them couldn't do it anymore. And so then I hired my current one, and she's amazing. And I just love working with her. She's so good to me, and she's exactly what I need. She keeps me on track. She keeps me organized, because we're jumping from thing to thing all the time.
right.
Sometimes we forget, like that we told him to do something or whatever, and she'll remind me and say, "Oh," and in a very nice, caring way. And I need that. Words of affirmation are very important to me. And you know what? When I hired her, after I hired her and decided who it was going to be, I gave her the assessment, the motivation by appreciation inventory, which is what is your language of appreciation so that I know
Oh,
I'm speaking
nice.
her language. And you know what? We have exactly the same languages, like in the same order. So it worked out perfect because we
That's
know how to
awesome.
communicate with each other. Yeah, and even though I get busy, I try to remember that I need to, be careful how I say things, not just be fast and quick. And sometimes I
Right.
have to say, not that she would ever complain, but I still want to make sure that I'm speaking in her language and that I'm not going too fast and forgetting things. And she gives me a lot of grace because,
That's awesome.
company owners were jumping from one thing to another. And because I do coaching and I do training and I'm trying to get my personal brand going and marketing. And so I'm going in a lot of different directions. And
Yep.
she keeps me on track. And I really appreciate having her there. I don't know what I would do without her.
Oh,
So,
I know. I know how you feel. It's crazy.
yes,
I'm amazed that so many loan officers don't have that help.
yes, they need
And
it. Really,
yeah, and it's so inexpensive that it's
exactly.
worth every penny.
And
Yeah.
yet they're making good money for where they live, but it's
Exactly.
harder to imagine that they would make decent money because for us, we're just in a different income, like our payroll is different here. That's
Yeah,
all.
the cost of living is so different that, for us, if we're paying them $5 to $7 an hour, to them, that's equivalent to 25 plus an hour,
Yes.
because the cost of living's so different.
Hmm.
I think the average wage or minimum wage in the Philippines right now is like $2 and something a day, not an hour, a day.
Wow.
So yeah, they're making really, really good money, and they get to have that, they get to work from home, you know?
Exactly.
They don't have to worry about traveling to get to work or anything, and
Yes.
it's just a huge win-win.
Mm-hmm. As a mortgage advisor, you know that having a high-performing loan team is critical to building a successful business. But training them can be time-consuming, and it can detract from more important tasks like generating leads and growing your business. But that's where we come in. We created Loan Assistant Mortgage Training Bootcamp, a self-paced online course available immediately to train your team, including newer loan officers, on how to actually do mortgage loans. Our course takes them step by step through the process, from taking a complete loan application to creating effective communication with clients, referral partners, and team members. When they complete the class, they will have the training to be an asset to you and your mortgage business. Visit loanteamtraining.com and navigate to the Loan Assistant Mortgage Training Bootcamp tab to review our course details and enroll. With our training, you can confidently delegate and devote your time to growing your business even more. The other thing that you mention in your book is ways to build culture in a remote team, defining your core values. Tell us about how to build culture with a remote team.
Really, the quickest and easiest way to build a really good culture with your remote employees, your virtual assistants or your remote team members, even if they're in the United States, but they're working remote, it's really like number one, and this sounds so basic, but number one is on every meeting that you have, always include your virtual assistant. Even if it has nothing to do with them and it's about processing of the files and so forth. But if you have like a team meeting, sometimes we feel like, well, we don't need to have the VA be there because they're working on marketing or outbound phone calls. But you really want them to feel part of that team. So always include them in those meetings. It's really, really important.
That's good. And then just finding out how they're doing, just like you would anybody on your team, you know?
Exactly.
I know that sometimes they're a little bit shy about saying they don't feel good or something's happening in
Right.
their life and they don't want to tell you because it's just the culture. The culture is so warm and so
Yes.
caring, and they don't want to put you out, or, you know, it could be that there's a little bit of fear about losing their job or that type of thing. I don't know.
You hit it right on. Yeah. They're very,
Yes.
very humble.
So humble, that's the word I'm looking for. So
Yeah.
I just try really hard to let her know, my full-time assistant, just let her know that don't worry, you know, everything is good. And I just try to give her that feeling so that she knows that I love having her work on my team.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's important.
And to point out wins in public too. So like on a team meeting,
Yes.
point out their wins, and it really helps them not only feel like they're part of the team because they really are, but yeah, pointing out those wins publicly is always really helpful.
Yeah, I think so too. And then you mention strategies for managing time zone and cultural differences. That's in the book. So tell me a little bit about how you manage that.
So time zones is really easily manageable because in the Philippines, I always compare it to here in the US. When you're a teenager, your first job is usually retail or fast food or restaurant business, something like that. In the Philippines, their first jobs are almost always working in like call centers. So they really get used to working that overnight shift. And so it's part of their culture. It makes it really, really easy for them to transition and working at home as a VA, working the overnight shift. So most loan officers, when they hire a VA, they want them there the same time that, you know, we work.
Yes.
Like my VAs work Central Time because I'm Central Time. And it's never an issue at all with virtual assistants. Now, if you hire the wrong one and they're not used to it, then you might have a problem. That's why it's so important to hire the right virtual assistant.
Yes.
And that's why we can help vet them out easily.
Hmm.
But yeah, culturally, there are a few things and tips and tricks you want to know. Like one thing that in the Philippines, they have what's called a 13th month. And
Hmm.
what that is that's a Christmas bonus, and they get a month worth of pay as a bonus. So they call it the 13th month. And so a lot of people don't realize that. And the VAs, 99% of the time, they're not going to tell you that because they are so humble and they just aren't comfortable telling you that.
Yeah.
But that's something really good to know. And
Hmm.
then you hit it right on when you talked about how humble they are and caring. And another thing that's you want to be real careful is if they feel overwhelmed, they may not say anything, and if they really feel overwhelmed, they might just quit
Hmm.
because they just don't think they're being good enough for you. So
Right.
having that open communication, like you were saying, Irene, is so important.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. So, remote assistant scout, what's the process? If somebody wants to hire a virtual assistant or they're interested in finding out about what is the process for them?
Really having a no obligation strategy call
Hmm.
scheduled is the best step to take, so you can kind of ask questions, find out the whole process, what we do. A loan officer can go to remoteassistantscout.com and they can sign up to get a strategy call.
Okay.
They'll get a couple things. One, they'll get an email with all sorts of information that outlines everything. We include 2 documents that outline exactly what a VA can do for you and your business. And then like I said, a strategy call to talk about all the ins and outs and things. If somebody does decide to move forward, we do all the vetting. We administer disc assessments. We listen to voice recordings. We do the background checks. We do the initial interviews. And then we interview the finalists, like the top 4 to 5 candidates, with the loan officer. So you can choose your own virtual assistant.
Hmm. That's great. I know when I hired mine, you gave me like 3 or 4 candidates. I went ahead and interviewed them and decided which one I wanted. And it was a hard choice because you gave me some really good candidates.
Right.
But I'm glad I picked who I picked. It worked out really well. One of the reasons I picked her was because of her disc profile and how it said that she was very altruistic and she was very much of a support person and she really wanted to help. And it's been true. It's exactly. I'm certified in the disc profile, so I was reading through it and thinking, I think this is what I'm looking for. And then I talked to them all 3 or 4. I can't remember how many there were, but I talked to each of them, and I just got a really good feeling about her. And so
That's awesome.
I went with that. And then I found out that we have the same appreciation languages, which was a bonus because it's easier to communicate when you have the same language, right?
Definitely. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. But I'm just curious, since we're talking about leadership, what do you think is a really important thing to do as a leader when you have a virtual assistant? I know we talked about a lot of things, but if you could
Right.
pick one thing to be a great leader when you have a virtual assistant, or just in general, what do you think is a really good quality to have as a leader?
With virtual assistants, I think it's I think it's managing them with respect, but not micromanaging them.
Hmm.
A lot of times we feel like we have to micromanage, and then it feels like someone's getting beat down over and over about something. But
Yes.
if you put the right things in place, like we put together what we call SOPs, they're called standard operating procedures.
Hmm.
So with different tasks and different strategies, the VA has a checklist of exactly what to do. So it's the same way every time. And I know you love to say that, same way every time.
Sweat, same way every time.
Wet. Yes. So we have SOPs, and then we time block the VA. So They know during certain hours exactly what they're doing, what hours they're making outbound calls, what hours they're working on your social media, when they're doing your calendars. So if you have the SOPs, you have them time blocked, there's really no need to micromanage. You're hearing the results at the end of the day every day. And so that to me really helps as far as being a good leader
Hmm.
is and taking input from them too makes a huge
Yes.
difference, I think.
Hmm. I ask her opinion a lot about things because I've built that trust in her.
Right.
She's a good leader. She is a good leader and a good employee, both. So I'm able to really trust her opinion on things. She
Exactly.
talks to people and she gets she reads a lot of the emails and takes care of things before I even can get to it. And she's very valuable to me. So I really appreciate the fact that you've opened this company years ago and that I finally gave up my resistance. And I wish I'd have done it sooner, but everything works out the way it's supposed to. But I
Oh
would
yeah.
highly recommend people to go to remoteassistantscout.com and be able to find out how a virtual assistant can help them. Because what I love about it is that it takes all the work and time away from the person hiring
Right.
until you get the final candidates. By that time, they've been vetted, everything's been done. It's way less work, way
Awesome.
less work. So, thank you, Richard, for being here today and for sharing your chapter on leadership matters. I am just really appreciative of the fact that we worked on this together and it was so fun.
So am I.
Yeah. And so I
Yeah, it was amazing. I thank Ginger Bell too for putting that together.
Me
Yeah.
too. And Fabi. Fabi as
And
well.
Fabi.
Yes, Ginger Bell and Fabi Nagmi are the ones that had this idea for Leadership Matters. And then I thought it was a great idea for them to get different perspectives from
Yes.
different leaders in different businesses, even. So there's several businesses. It's not just real estate agents or loan officers.
Yep.
There's all kinds of companies in there as
And
well.
it's a
And it's
bestseller too.
Yes, it's an Amazon bestseller. It happened really fast, and we're really appreciative of the support. But if you want the book, you can go to Amazon.com, obviously, and look for Leadership Matters. You can also go to leadershipmatters.com. The really fun part about it is that all of the proceeds are going to a really great foundation called A Need We Feed, and it's going to go to people that don't have food, and it's just an amazing thing to do. So I'm grateful for that, and it makes me want to tell people about the book even more because it's going
Right.
to help you as a leader. It's going to help you if you haven't really led yet but you want to learn how to be a great leader, and it's going to help people who don't have money for food. And so you
Exactly.
can't find a
That's
better
awesome.
win than that. So
Very cool.
well, thank you, Richard, for being here today. I sure appreciate it. And
Thank you.
if you're interested in the book, we're going to put all of the information in the show notes, including Remote Assistant Scout, and A Need We Feed will be in there, and also the link to buy the book. So
Awesome.
if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And I just really appreciate you guys being here with us today.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time, Richard. Thank you for being with us today. We really appreciate it. If you got value out of it, we would sure appreciate you sharing this podcast with your friends. That's all we ask. And thank you so much. Enjoy every minute of your day.